Hi everyone, it's Maria from J'adore le papier. Today I'm presenting my first official RubyandPearlXO design team journal. It's actually an altered book custom journal dedicated to my Uncle Bob, or Robert. And actually it's going to be a love story, his and hers, over the span of over 50 years. Because my aunt is actually moving to Texas and the movers come this week. So I need to finish all of her journals in memory box. But anyway, this journal represents my uncle's love for Ralph Lauren. If it wasn't a Ralph Lauren bedsheet, then it wasn't going on his bed. And he loved the sea, so there are 2 seashells here representing him and my aunt. And then he has half the heart of this mother of pearl shell right here. He actually passed away 2 years ago. So I designed the project. This has actually been over a year in the making. Many of you know I actually lived with my aunt for a year, helping her downsize and eventually sell the home, which sold over one day, just because the images look like my aunt kissing my uncle goodnight every night, and just because of the love story. And then over a year ago, I actually planned for the Seaside Dreams to be the primary theme of the journal because of his love for the sea, their love for the sea. And the beautiful blue images, blue being one of his favorite colors. Hopefully my camera won't shake too much. These journals that I've made are massive. Again, over 50 years worth of papers that I helped my aunt weed through last year. So the journal width is about 9 inches. The spine is over 2 inches. There's over 320 pages, all hand-built and hand-stitched because they were all individual pieces of paper. Signature text block that I like to make for my altered books or journals. So this is actually a pocket belly band, so I'm going to sneak in a little secret note in here for him. Is lined with this leather gusset just to give it strength. And the cover is courtesy of my friend Susie. Her mom had some fabrics over the years which were perfect stripes and perfect browns representing my uncle's favorite colors. This is early 70s, I believe, photo of my Uncle Bob. He was always in a Hawaiian shirt. This is one of the, I think this is La Luna. I'm pretty sure this is La Luna. I'll double check, but when the birds have gone to sleep, I thought it was a perfect, and this actually kind of looks like sort of their Poulsbo home setting, just by the water, the Puget Sound. And then there, throughout the journal, you'll see all of these Robert Louis Stevenson poems representing him. So this one starts with, "Sing me a song of a lad that is gone." Okay, once upon a time, there was a little boy who was actually the last child, so definitely very spoiled. He was born in November. And what I struggled with making a journal for people who don't journal. And my aunt is basically just, she loves to save paper, but she doesn't write and she doesn't necessarily scrapbook at all. In fact, I'm rebuilding my uncle's old scrapbook from the 1950s. How do you decorate a journal for people who don't journal at all? I just wanted to use as much paper, almost no fabrics except for anything that represented his love for stripes. And then just a lot of their original photos and a lot of belly bands and tucks, so that if one day she finds extra documents or does want to go through and leave a note, she has the space to do it. But this was my uncle at obviously his birthday and probably grade school graduation. And this is probably my favorite layout. Several of Heather's kits have these awesome denim blues, which was his favorite color, and he loved his sailboats, wooden sailboats. So these are just greeting cards that you'll see throughout the journal. But this one here is definitely La Luna, and you'll see this color repeated, but the lost occasion. I thought that was a beautiful poem. Aunt kissing my Uncle Bob goodnight every night. He came from one sea and settled to another sea, eventually in Poulsbo, Washington. But this is a little history about my grandfather, who I never met. He was a former school teacher and principal, and then taught in college as well. And then again, how do you decorate for someone who doesn't journal? So I used a lot of the imagery as belly bands, just like here, so that it doesn't add a lot of bulk and so that I have room for the over 300 pages. So you'll see a lot of thinner vellum and or rice paper style pieces added. Poulsbo, if you've ever been, is a Norwegian town, so very Scandinavian. And I actually wanted to bring up this photo because this is quintessential Uncle Bob. Hula dancer, always the chubby kid who loved food till the end. Always in a Hawaiian shirt, and a hula dancer who happened to fall in love and meet a ballet dancer. So this is actually their early dating picture. This is a booklet cover, the back of the Robert Louis Stevenson poetry book. And I thought she might one day want to write a little note to him here. And then this is a copy of their wedding certificate to lock to paper. And then you'll see 50 years worth of documents. So how do you combine birth certificates with digitals in a journal? And this one is from Love and Light, one of Heather's most recent, and I just love that the angel is helping usher in the new baby. So this is my uncle's certificate and his baptism. And because I love to print vintage or antique papers, these came from Postal Love, or now it's Mr. Postal Love with their authentic stamp. Now, originally, because she doesn't really journal, I wanted to make her post-its and to also cover up some of the pictures just to keep some information private. But I wanted to make post-it style papers, and originally I just went ahead and glued on pieces of the post-it paper that I had, but it looks like there's actually a post-it glue or a replaceable glue. So I'm going to add that to this flip through at the very end when it arrives from Belgium, and book pages representing his love for boats, but also a lot of white space because of these old documents and letters. The first official chapter after their history will be his college and his culinary school. So he loved his pastries, but he was even better at seafood, clam bakes, lobster bakes, his grades. My aunt kept everything. His report cards. So again, you'll see Ruby and Pearl XO's images as tucks so that I didn't add too much layer and weight because this book is massive, but also to still give it some character. So there's our uncle in their first house in Poulsbo, actually the house that was renovated and just sold last year. Did cook every day till the very end. So let me see here, recipes. There's a nice thick chapter on recipes kept from his culinary school and cooking school days. So everything from fried pies, and he was the best at making fried donuts. I scan these and I'll make them available digitally because some of these popovers and some of these measures for making perfect dough are really, for me, awesome to see, and also just to see the age and the fact that my aunt kept everything. So funny because he loved to make these fritters. I think they were called fritters, the fried donuts he made. But she was always dieting just so that she could eat all his food. So she was always on this cabbage soup diet. And these images from one of Heather's kits, I'll flash it or figure out which one it was. It looks like these two girls are talking about how they like the soup diet. And this one is saying it's torture, but look at my waist. It really works. I mentioned that he does love his clam bakes, and they do live by the sea. So just north of Poulsbo, I forget which sea town it was, but you get fresh clams or fresh seafood basically every day. You just show up, and the fishermen are right there. And again, it's a very Norwegian town, Norwegian area of the Puget Sound. 7-layer salad, scalloped potatoes, and he did do big meals. Nothing was buffet, but everything was gourmet. There's a few more recipes tucked in here from oatmeal bars, some good old-fashioned guacamole, Mrs. Fields. But you'll see, dates here. This is a digital by Ruby and Pearl XO onto an envelope, so it can actually be a tuck envelope. And this deer here, my uncle loved cooking with wine and liquors, and he was awesome at it. I'm better at the pairing, but he was better at cooking with wine. And the deer actually represents a lot of the wild deer that traveled through their property all the time. They were surrounded by wildlife. You'll see a picture of their house in the back. But here is another section on citizenship. And I took one of her digitals to actually tuck in all of my uncle's paychecks that my aunt had saved. But this is one of the post-it styles, so you'll see I just glued them on, but I can't wait to get the glue, the movable glue stick that I ordered. And this actually, but I love that her dad actually wrote her a note and told her which chapters to focus on, so I did make a copy of which chapters those. Here's a post-it style where I went ahead and kept the whole post-it in case she wanted to write notes on it. But it's basically just, you know, a journaling card that's movable. I know we all love our washi tapes, and if you do the double-sided tape, that's permanent. This is my favorite chapter, his hobbies. This is a photo of my uncle. I'll try to zoom in. Some of these older 1970s and 60s photos are blurry. They're not as enhanced as our digital photography today. But that's actually a funny picture, his hippie hair. His hobbies, again, he loves old wooden boats, anything seaside. So I have all of his seaside Japanese fisherman floats. But once they moved to Poulsbo and the Port Townsend area, he started collecting trolls. And I think my dad actually has this collection now. Very Norwegian and scary, some of them. He loved to garden and plant, and actually a cigarette card from England, or from either England or Germany. And then one of the French botanical pages from Aline, and one of his favorite images, sailboats. This is actually just north of Seattle, and then his love of interior design and decorating. I think I pick up on that from him and my dad. They both sketched, they're both photographers, and in the case of my uncle, he was obsessed with interior design. Their bedroom had to be Ralph Lauren sheets, everything, lots of navies, because he preferred the Ralph Lauren home and the seaside look. In PearlXO, this is La Luna, and this one is maybe Mademoiselle. I'll have to double check. I'll be very first camera, Nikon, that she bought him. And these are just some old photos from when he was growing up in the 60s, I think. On the old wooden boats that he loved to collect. His very first one of his very first cars, actually, he had an orange Duster at first, and then a Trans Am because of that one movie, Smokey and the Bandit, I think. Yes. Anyway, here's a ferry travel schedule because he actually loved driving a lot. He drove my aunt everywhere, and he just went everywhere. So here's Seattle. This is where I'm at. You probably heard last year I took the ferry a lot to Bainbridge Island, to Winslow here, because their house was right in between here, in between Bainbridge and Poulsbo. And there's a passage here with a bridge, and this is called Agate Pass. So you're going to see some references to agate later there. Welcome to the Puget Sound. And just north of here are the San Juan Islands. Right in here, San Juan Islands. And then Victoria, BC, the Vancouver Island here into Canada. So seafood is our thing. And then this is actually old vintage sketch and charcoal paper from Susie, her collection that her mom sent me. So Susie, your artwork is forever in my uncle's memory book. He loved his BMW. My aunt kept all that paperwork too, and I think the key is in her memory box that I made them for her. Food, antiques, and just unique little shops and ferries. You live by the ferry schedule around here. Love of old boats, so some French book pages. I use this. This is one of her vanilla colored French letters that you actually fold. It's double-sided. And I made it into a belly band. Originally, I had folded it just like it was sent, where you fold it into each other and mail it that way in France. But I made it a belly band that I wanted to be opened, so that she could actually write in this one day, or if you're making your own journal, you can make a belly band that you can just open and make a journaling spot. If it was premium, that's his favorite brand, but he loved his Hartman luggage. And this little section of pages actually represents a lot of the wooden boats he saved. So here's one called the Agate, and here's the full-on Agate sailboat. So I stitched these together in the future when I get caught up. with custom journals, but literally hundreds of pages stitched together. A French page about home and charity. I translated this for her, and I think I'll put the translation in here. So here's a ferry, a watercolor of a Bainbridge Island ferry, and some of the passes that I saved for her. Bainbridge Island Winery. Again, my uncle loved cooking with wines. I like pairing them and drinking them. And then a lot of the wildlife and the birds. It's just, and this was the exterior of their it looks like a log cabin. It's basically all cedar and literally surrounded by an acre of ancient cedars. So, and then there's a path down here to the water. So the forest that they were surrounded by. And then probably 20 years later, they started remodeling the kitchen to be a true chef's kitchen, and I think this, besides the location and the kitchen that he had her install. And then this is another digital from Heather. This one is La Luna. And just my uncle waving to my aunt. There's Agate Passage right there. It's a sweet picture. And then in the back here, this duo here is La Luna and By the Sea kits, and then one last Robert Louis Stevenson poem. And then he passed away April 2 years ago. So this one, I don't remember, this might be Love and Light kit. I'll double check. And then the very back, and there's my aunt. My uncle's not in this photo, but I think those are her siblings or her siblings and in-laws. Postcard from his favorite wooden boat festival. So that is the end of the journal in the back. I flipped through it very, very fast because over 300 pages of old documents isn't exactly our typical junk journal. Okay, so this is actually my aunt's in-progress journal. Before I create the cover. So I build the spine first. First I take each 2 pages, make them into a leaf. This is a Ruby and Pearl design here. And then each leaf, or each 2 pages, is French linked to each other. So this is about 80 stitches to create over 300 pages. Some of the digitals are already in here, but most of them will be like the ballet, vintage ballet ones, some of the kits, some of the perfumes I built her. But again, I'm gonna be doing a lot of post-it style and tucks for her because she has way... Hi everyone, just adding this really quickly. So here's the glue stick, it's movable. This happens to be Scotch, but there are other brands. And the instructions say to basically give it a couple of swipes and wait 90 seconds for it to dry. So I've tried it on vellum, and you can see that it can just re-stick everywhere. And then here's regular paper. I'd say it's not as smooth as normal Post-its. So you hear Post-its are a little bit quieter when you lift them, but it does work. I've been lifting these a few times now, and so far the adhesive hasn't really run out. But I like that I can give a stack of these Post-its to my aunt or anybody else in the future, and they can reimagine some of the layouts that you make in their journals.